So one of the great things about Vietnam is its barbershops. They do an awesome job, awesome service, great price. So that's what I've been this morning, folks, and now I'm going to talk to you about some of the things I wish I knew before coming to live in Vietnam. So the first thing I want to mention is air pollution, and it's something that I just didn't think about when I came to Asia, and especially when I came to Vietnam. I was a young man many years ago, and I was thinking about other things. And one of those, and I definitely didn't cross my mind about air pollution here, and it's actually really bad, especially in the cities. So the AQI often above 100. I think today you probably can see it's a little hazy. It's about 140 today, and the PM 2.5 is over 11 times what the WHO recommends. So as I've lived here a number of years, it concerns me more and more, and that's one thing that I kind of probably should have thought about a little bit more before coming to live in Vietnam for a long time. Also, just things like trash and pollution in general, so water pollution and trash on the streets. There's a lot of plastic around, probably a lot of microplastics as well, things like that. And it's hard to actually get a real idea about the water quality, like what is the quality of the water you're drinking here? Is it good? What's in it? Things like that. So long-term health factors. So for long-term health, there's things like that as well, which also weigh on my mind, and they were just things I didn't really think about when I first came here. One of the other things I didn't really factor into my decision was, and I later found out to be quite difficult, was finding an apartment. So finding a suitable place to live is actually quite hard here, in my opinion. And you know, if you're like me, you want to live somewhere that's kind of quiet, fairly modern, and has at least some amenities. But it's actually really, really difficult to find a good place like that unless you really, really want to pay through the teeth, so to speak. So that's something I didn't really think about. I thought, oh, Vietnam, you know, low middle income country, it's going to be much cheaper than the UK, and it is. But when it comes to accommodation, it's not really all that much cheaper if you want to go for something that's quite modern and nice to live in. So something to bear in mind, folks. So reason number 3 is difficulty of finding jobs and work. So when I initially came here, I took a year off from my job in the UK, did the traveling thing for a bit, went to where did I go? China, Hong Kong, Thailand, places like that. And I decided to stay in Vietnam. And I talk about this in my other videos quite a bit, why I came here and why I like living here. I was quite lucky in that I eventually found quite a good job that is, I wouldn't say massively related to my background in the UK, but somewhat related. But for most people, or for a lot of people, it's really, really hard to do that. And a lot of people just end up teaching, getting hours where they can, or they would come over on a expat deal, expat package, and live arguably a very nice life. But it's something I just didn't know when I came here. I thought work would be a lot easier to find, and it's not. It is, and especially at the moment with visa issues, etc., it's actually getting more and more difficult to find work here if you're not transferred over from your home country. The next thing that I didn't really consider as much as I perhaps should have was the heat, humidity and the weather. So coming from a cold country where 15 degrees here is a balmy day in the UK, 30 degrees C is actually pretty cold for Vietnam, especially in the south. So you're looking at a real feel of about 41, 42 degrees with very high humidity almost every day here. And it's super uncomfortable, and it does get pretty difficult to exercise outside and to do day-to-day things if you don't have a motorbike and if you're not taking air-conditioned cabs. So something I didn't really think about, and something I perhaps should have considered, and maybe a little bit more in my choice of countries to live long-term. So my next reason is traffic. And you can see here, this is a typical street in District 3, I think I am now, in Ho Chi Minh City. And traffic this is very light traffic. It's lunchtime now. People are going out to get something to eat, or maybe heading off somewhere for a nap. But when you first come to Vietnam, and when you first think about coming to Vietnam, you'll Google some stuff about the country. You'll see those pictures of all the motorbikes. You think, oh, it's kind of cool, right? Look at that, all those people on motorbikes. And yeah, when you first come here, the first couple of weeks, maybe even months, it's quite interesting. You've never seen anything like it in your life before. But then it starts to get kind of a little bit annoying, and it can become quite irritating, and it's actually very, very dangerous. Like, I've had accidents, I've had friends who've had like really serious accidents, and you know, again, not something I really thought about too much, but something that I would think about again if I were to come here. And perhaps I would live in a smaller city and keep away from all this chaos. So my final point to touch upon is availability of long-term visas, and I'm quite lucky in my job that I get sponsored for 2 years. I get the TRC, temporary resident card, so I'm able to live here without paying anything for 2 years at a time. But I've been here now over 6 years, and I still don't get any recognition as a foreigner living in Vietnam. There's no passport, there's no long-term residency option like most other countries have. So if I were to lose my job in a couple of weeks, I'd be the same status as a tourist. And I don't think that's very fair. I've paid a lot of tax here over the years. I've contributed into the economy in numerous different ways. And I think it's pretty bad that the government here doesn't recognize your contribution. It doesn't make it easier for foreigners such as myself who have paid in, who have lived here a long time, to actually become more of a long-term resident. And you don't think of these things when you're initially coming to another country, when you're young. But as you grow in a country, as you work various jobs, and as you perhaps maybe meet someone, settle down, you do start to think about these things, and it does become a bit of a sore point. So I'm going to end on a positive note, as I always try to do, folks, and I do love living in Vietnam. It's still a good place to live, I think, although it's a little more complicated in some ways than it used to be, and it's certainly not as easy to live here as it used to be. On the whole, the people are really friendly and helpful, especially towards foreigners, and you can generally have a really nice life here if you want to. People will leave you alone, and you'll be able to have a nice time. So there we go. Thanks for watching, guys. Please give me a like and subscribe if you haven't already. Plenty more stuff to come from Vietnam. I got some big news soon. I'm going to be making some changes. I'm going to announce that in a couple of weeks. Stay tuned, watch this space. Take it easy.